Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark from the United States.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Mark from the States. How we doing today? I'm doing fantastic. I hope you are as well. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate each and every one of you. You know that I do. Today we're going to finish up Secrets of a Medieval Castle by our good friend Kevin Hicks. This is Chepstow Castle, I think is what it was. Yeah, interesting video so far. Just the whole thought of these castles that dot your countryside. It's just very interesting and awesome reminders of what life was like back in the day. And it's just interesting that how well they were built. Yeah, it's a testament to how well they were built, that a lot of them are still around. So let's get right to part 2, Secrets of a Medieval Castle with Kevin Hicks and the History Squad. So please support his channel if you don't already. I'm sure most of you do. He's entertaining to listen to, so let's get into it.
So we're going to leave the kitchens and we're going to go up into the Great Hall. Mind the steps as you come up. They're always uneven. Here we are in the Great Hall. There's not much left of it. Much of it was destroyed during the Civil War. They weren't that big, these Great Halls. They were just big enough to have your food, your feast. But many of your soldiers would rough it in here. And it's quite misleading because during the Victorian times, they pulled a lot of this down to make it look more like a ruin. But the way into this part of the castle was over here.
Weird.
This was the front door. To get into the Great Hall, you had to come into a tower which has now gone. There were portcullis, there were drawbridges, all have disappeared. And then come back here and let's see if we can show you. So I was with my old friend Andrew, right? All his life devoted to these castles. And I says to him, this room was all locked up. And I said, why don't we open it? Why don't we clear it out? And he put the suggestion forward, and they did. They emptied it out, built the steps. It was wonderful because we needed a home for the original doors. But when they'd done it, I'm in here, you know, waiting for my school kids to arrive, and I'm looking up, and I saw 2 ghostly shapes on the wall. Can you see the 2 shields?
Oh, yeah.
Those 2 shields are set in the original plaster. Those 700-800 years old. It's incredible, isn't it? We've never been able to identify them, but we know Mr. and Mrs., somebody arriving, maybe their shields will be up there. Who knows? But look at this. This is the original Chepstow Castle doors. And you can see, you have your cross bracing, yeah? This is your great put lug to lock it, and here is the wicket gate. This is your daily gate. Yeah, you keep this open. And what I used to get the school children to do, and this is giving me a bit of a thrill, right? You put your thumb here, and you draw this bolt back. This bolt here has actually worn through where countless thumbs have actually opened and closed it. The step worn so much it's been replaced in the ancient days. This, to me, is a marvel. And I can reach around the front and there are still parts of iron plates on it. Why'd they put iron on doors facing out of a castle? Makes them heavy. Why'd they do it? I'm going to leave you to ponder. Let me know in the comments why you think castle doors were shod in iron. Let's go and have a look at the Earl's Chamber.
Wild.
So here we are in the Earl's Chamber. Up until the 1950s, people actually lived here, the custodians of the castle. But it's been put back just to show you what a medieval room was like. But actually, some years ago, they refurbished it and tried to make it look as it did in the day of the earls, the ancient knights. But when they put the new roof on, they were told by an old workman here, great guy, don't do it like that. Now, he had been a stonemason all his life, and he was now in his late 60s, early 70s, and he says, that will leak. And they dismissed him. And he says, you watch, Kevin, that'll leak. And sure enough, it leaked so badly, this room was closed down for years. And it's a shame, because he's now dead and gone, and his secrets, many of them have gone with him. So you imagine, this is your medieval fireplace, fire roaring there in the winter, warming this whole room up. They certainly lived in more comfort than you'd think. Castles weren't quite as cold as you would think. So we're in the lower bailey of the castle. This is the youngest part of the castle. You see Martin's Tower there. That's Tudor, a lot of Tudor work in there. There would have been like a little town in here. This would have had all your smiths. People would have lived in their little shacks. And in fact, there's a piece that I know about. Let me show you. Come over here. So I used to bring my school groups up here, all my children and students, yeah? And I'd say, fireplace. And they'd all go into the fireplace. And I'd say, why is there a fireplace up there? And they'd be going, ooh, ooh. They just couldn't figure out why we had two fireplaces. And then I'd show them, there's a stairway up there. Any ideas? I said, look around for clues. What they didn't realise, you can actually see the remains of part of it. This was a house. One of your black and white timber houses all the way across here. This is the middle of it. The other side is out the back in the next bailey. So it's like a bit of a Tudor mansion that stood here. All wood and thatch and that kind of stuff, which I think is just wow. But there's a trick here. You imagine the enemy capture this part of the castle, all right? They come streaming over the walls and you retreat into the middle bailey. Let me show you the trap. Try and follow me. Here, it's a blind. As you come round here, it's a trap. If you look behind you, men on the battlements can still shoot at you. Even the doors, you could shoot through them. We've got some of the original doors here. Look at these old doors. Musket loops, cutting them from the Civil War. There was also a building above your head, long gone, that had your murder holes. And then the tower, when the castle became peaceful, was converted to a bakery. Kitchen and a bakery in here. And I'll have you know, I've actually baked bread in here. But interesting, this will be sealed up. When you opened it, all the smoke went up this chimney and came out halfway up this chimney. So this was a kitchen, but originally, this was the front of the castle. Before they extended the castle down, this was one of your front defensive towers. So there were no doors either side. Let's go through the door, have a look at the middle bailey. So we're in the middle bailey, but when it fell out of use, it was the front part of the castle that was the living quarters, if you like. This had lots of defence things, and you would have had workshops here. But the most interesting thing is the Great Tower, the first stone-built castle in Britain. So this is where I actually shot the incendiary arrow down into the far corner there, if you've seen it on one of my previous videos. But this is the Great Tower, and a lot of the red stone that you see is actually Roman. As I pointed out, this tower was built so quickly because they used so much Roman stone. Let's have a look inside. This never used to be here. This has all been put later in the medieval times, all part of the defence. And these steps didn't exist. If you wanted to get into the Great Tower, you had to go up wooden steps across a drawbridge, all on a wooden frame. and that would be knocked down if they were under attack. It's called the Great Tower because it's not a keep, right? It is the Great Tower. This is the entranceway here. You turn left as you came in, that took you up the stairs, which brought you out up there. Look at the size of the put lugs, the holes for the beams. The main chamber was upstairs. We're in the cellars, and it's built on solid rock. It doesn't have foundations because it is actually on the cliff. This is one of the reasons they could build it so quickly, because literally straight onto the stone. An incredible arch went across here. It must have been, wow. But its downfall was the fact that it was too big. But William Marshall himself would have been in here. This was one of his favourite places. The top of the little niches there, when the sun shines on it, you can still see some of the original paint. They were just crosses, but it was original paint. And there are still some of the old things left here that people miss. Finials and a king's head or two.
Oh, wow.
And that shows you that this was a 1, 2, 3, 4-story building. Well, the other little secret in this incredible tower is the secret doorway up there. Goes behind the screen and up onto the battlements. So here we are at the original end of the castle. The Great Tower behind you. Then the original back gate. Let's have a little look. A lovely old yew tree here. So this is the original back door. These have been preserved. They have musket loops in them. There was a drawbridge here, a massive drawbridge. This is the false castle at the back of Chepstow Castle. This is for nothing but defence. This is for soldiers. And look at the commanding view you have of the River Wye. So this, as I said, was one of the towers at the back of the castle. This is actually accommodation for the ladies, so I understand. But if you have a look through this loop here, you can see along the castle. It gives you a commanding view. You can enfilade anybody coming up the hill. And if we have a look around the corner through a musket loop. So this is a musket loop from the 17th century, from what it was called the English Civil War. It gives you quite a view. You imagine 2 or 3 musketeers on each loop. Yeah, they got plenty of scope to shoot. So what we have on the top here, that's what the castle used to look like. It had proper castellation. So all changed for when they had guns. So we've seen the inside of the castle, we've done the tour. Now we're going to go outside and see the outside of the castle. You'll be amazed at what's still there.
Just gorgeous, though.
This is a favourite part of Chepstow Castle for me. This is where a battle actually took place, 25th of May 1648. You can see musket loops at the top of the curtain wall that's still left standing. But over here to the right of it, you can see there are buttresses holding up the wall. You can see it really does look unstable. And that's because just before the attack, Oliver Cromwell's artillery, which had been brought down from the siege of Gloucester, fired straight at the base of the wall and brought the whole thing down. Now, when the parliamentarian troops charged across here, they were under fire from that tower, this tower, and then yet another tower over there. So once the castle was taken, they rebuilt the wall and they put an artillery piece inside the wall. You can't see it now, it's all been bricked up. And they put cannons on top of these towers that were on a revolving platform, so they could actually be moved around. But these musket loops here that you can see in front of you, they're quite rare to be so purposely made. We're going to move up and you'll see some more of the castle. It's quite amazing, really. You know, we're looking at all of this that was damaged in the Civil War. This is all actually an extension of the castle. Yeah, the original part of the castle, we haven't even got to it yet. There is so much of this. And it's difficult to hit because Chepstow Castle, you'll see, is actually very narrow. So to drop arrows or to drop shot inside it can be quite difficult. And of course, as you move up, you come under fire or come under shot from so many different towers. It's one of the best defensive positions I've ever found. So we've got the remains of the medieval curtain wall. Unfortunately, because after the Civil War, these places were slighted, they were reduced, so they couldn't be used against Parliament again. But this is where we get into the original part of the castle. 1,000 years of history here. This is the earliest part of the castle behind me, what they call the Great Tower. And it was the first stone-built castle in Britain. It was commissioned on the orders of William the Conqueror. So 1067 he commissioned, and they used stone from a local Roman ruins here. There's a Roman town at Cowent and Caerleon, and they robbed lots of the stone. So every now and again, you can spot a piece of Roman stonework. And what you have behind it is yet another extension. The rear of the castle finishes just there. People think it goes on and there's all this around it, but that's a trick, right? It's an after castle. The back bit is for nothing but defense, for killing. The castle officially finishes where that tower is there, and it was accommodation for the ladies. Yeah, and it was very good accommodation too. Here we are at the rear entrance of the castle, and it's amazing because there used to be a giant drawbridge that came across all of here, then 3 portcullis gates inside. But this is a castle around the back door. You can smash away at this, you can try and get in, but once you get in, there's another drawbridge and another set of doors just to get into the castle. It's almost like the forgotten part of the castle. Come and have a look just how high up on a cliff Chepstow Castle is. You cannot be attacked from the eastern side. That is the River Wye. It's at low tide at the moment. At high tide, you can get ships up here. Yeah, in fact, up until the 1920s, coal ships used to come up and turn around, small ships. But in the medieval times, there was a full harbour here. Chepstow Castle was supplied by ships. This, nowadays, is called the gateway to Wales. Back in the medieval times, it was actually the entrance to a hostile territory. Just one more thing before we go around to the front. This is an arrow slit. This is an original arrow slit. It's not been repaired. But I'm going to show you what they look like. We have a repaired one just round the corner. This is a refurbished, rebuilt arrow slit. Very, very narrow on the inside, barely 2 fingers wide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get Julie, my camera person, to actually just back down, because this is where there is a secret to the castle. Right, I'm going to overtake you. This is the postern gate. This is the escape, the way out for spies, for sneak attacks, for all of that kind of stuff. There was some kind of structure in front of it. You can see some of the remains of what used to be here, and it concealed the postern gate, the secret way in and out of the castle. This is how the spies got in, how the spies got out. So I hope you enjoyed our little tour of Chepstow Castle, my favourite castle in the world. If you did, thumbs up. If you're a subscriber, hey, thanks a million. If you're not, subscribe. Yeah, ding that proverbial bell. And of course, a special shout out now to all my Patreon members. Thanks, guys. And if you want to become a member of our Patreon community, then there is a link in the description. Thank you very much.
So that was cool. Just so much history. It's just mind-boggling how these structures were built so long ago and still remain today. You see a lot of examples of these castles that, like I mentioned earlier, that are all over the place, which is just truly remarkable. But Yeah, no castles here in the States per se. I don't think they would be called a castle, but there are some old structures still around. But just yeah, cool stuff. I dig Kevin, so please support his channel. He does good work. He's entertaining. You could just see the passion he has for these videos. He teaches kids, and so he's just loves what he does. You could just see, and it comes through, and makes it enjoyable for me to learn while watching him. But yeah, cool stuff. Thank you for that suggestion. I hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe. And we'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark. And he's from